Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the online learning channel. My name is Brad, and for today, we are going to be focusing on English, the grade 12 curriculum. What I have for you guys is a PowerPoint slide presentation that I'd just like to share with you that just focuses on a particular aspect of English that refers to writing and presenting, more specifically looking at the idea of essays. Now, remember, when it comes to essays, a lot of your assessment will be evident within paper 3 with regards to the upcoming examinations. So with regards to the examinations, it's always a good idea to bear in mind that in paper 3 you will be faced with a section of the paper that essentially asks you to answer a series of questions that refer to essay writing. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be focusing on the idea of what does it mean to prepare for essays, essentially looking at writing and presenting aspects, and what type of essays you would typically come across and could, of course, present at the end of the day. All right, so when it comes to essays, generally there are three types. First and foremost, we have what's known as a narrative essay, then we have what's known as a reflective essay, and then we have what's known as an argumentative essay. There are other versions of essays, but essentially these are the, say, primary examples of the type of essay that you could embark on and present in your actual paper in order for the examiner to assess you at the end of the day. So now when it comes to the nature of these essays, this is exactly what we're going to be discussing today, what kind of strategies that you could take on in order to execute these essays. So as I mentioned, the types of essays that you could typically be making use of, first and foremost, a narrative essay refers to the idea that narrative writing is largely the presentation of a series of events, a story or a past event or in any aspect of fiction in some meaningful order. So when it comes to your essays, it's always a good idea to bear in mind that they do need to follow a strict and say coherent like structure to them in order for it to be sound and in order for it to be somewhat legible for the examiner. A reflective essay. Reflective essays present the writer's ideas or views, thoughts, and feelings on a particular topic, usually something they feel very strongly about. So this could be more of a kind of personalized version of an essay, if you will, reflecting on past events, perhaps some kind of ideas that the writer has now conjured up based on experiences, and just generally sharing their thoughts and their ideas on whatever topic it may be. And then you have what's known as an argumentative essay. So argumentative essays tend to be subjectively argued. The idea of being subjective, of course, is presenting your particular viewpoint on whatever topic it may be. It involves the defense or the attack of a particular, say, viewpoint. It's consistent and well argued as much as possible. But it will inevitably be one-sided. That's just the nature of the essay. But the conclusion clearly states where the writer stands and why they stand on that particular view at the end of the day. So it's important to weigh up what is essentially your point of view on a particular topic, but it's also a good idea to bear in mind what the alternative views on whatever topic it may be, just that you give the examiner a sense as to whether or not you do understand the broader context of whatever topic you may be referring to. So now when it comes to the possible features of a narrative essay, it's always a good idea to make use of any kind of study techniques or examination preparation techniques that can assist you along the way. And often is the case in English that we can make use of what's known as acronyms. So in this particular case, the acronym that we're going to be referring to is the acronym SPICED. And we're just going to be explaining what exactly that now refers to. So with regards to, again, narrative essays, the acronym SPICED can be made use of by the student in order to prepare for whatever topic may be coming their way. So now with regards to the first letter, S stands for storyline. So when it comes to your storyline, it's always a good idea for you to now present your storyline in a convincing manner that essentially gets the message across. The second letter, P, stands for past tense. Use the past tense in order to present and create a sense of immediacy and directness. This again is what the author now embarks on in order to get a nice coherent message across, reflecting or narrating in this particular case on whatever events did take place. Introduction, I, the next letter, usually a captivating introductory paragraph is what you would need to focus on in this particular essay. Conclusion, C, ensure at the end is either satisfying, ambiguous, or even confusing, but never predictable. This always gives the reader a kind of sense of, you know, whether or not they are actually going to predict the end of the storyline or not. But it's always a good idea to try and bring across a unique and, say, ambiguous like ending that just keeps the reader engaged and captivated. So, speaking of engaged, the next letter is E, which stands for engage. Use direct speech if you want immediacy or to empower a particular character. Indirect speech if you want your reader to be distanced from the speaker. So it's up to you at the end of the day whether you want this kind of character to be empowered or whether you want the reader to be distanced from this particular speaker. And then the last letter, D, stands for describe. So you are to use descriptive elements where necessary, but good stories are very compact and writers often remove every word that does not have a purpose. So believe it or not, writers think about every single word that they incorporate into their particular pieces. In this particular case, it's an essay that serves a purpose. There's never a word or a phrase or a sentence or a paragraph that doesn't contribute in some kind of meaningful manner. All right, so developing a plot into a storyline. Okay, this is often a technique that is quite difficult to now master, but in this particular case, we can make use of a couple of approaches that can assist us along the way. So the kind of components that I'll be discussing are in the left-hand column of this particular table, and on the right-hand side, we have the definition or the use of this particular component in question. So the use of explosion or a hook-like approach. This is often the case when it comes to thrilling or stirring events or a problem that presents itself in order to stir a kind of interest or immediate interest in the reader. The aspect of conflict, a problem or a challenge for the protagonist gives the protagonist or the main character, whatever story it may be, some kind of purpose, some kind of objective. Sometimes the problem or challenge can come from within a person due to any kind of weaknesses that they may present, or maybe even an illness that they are experiencing, just hypothetically speaking. Then exposition, background information, so that your characters are understood, often is a good technique to make use of, just to give the reader an understanding as to what the background of this character may be, which of course would then describe and explain who they are at the end of the day. Complication, so one or more problems that prevent your character from attaining their goal. Often is the case when we embark on any kind of journey to achieve our goals. There are going to be a couple of hurdles along the way, a couple of, say, challenges that we may need to overcome in order to achieve those goals, which just makes the prize at the end of the day that much sweeter, if you will. The use of flashbacks, remembering something that happened before the story took place, again, just gives a kind of, just gives the reader a sense as to what kind of life did the protagonist live once upon a time that would potentially result in the current events taking place. The climax, when the developing story reaches its peak, often is the case that this could be the most exciting part of any particular essay. Falling action, releasing the action of the story after the climax, just explaining things in detail, going into the specifics as to why particular events did take place in the way that they did. And then resolution, when the conflict has been resolved. It does not have to be a solution at the end of the day. It can be a way of just dealing with the problem. There are many ways that we can take on our problems. It doesn't have to be a strict and confined science at the end of the day. Okay, so those are narrative essays in a nutshell. So now, with regards to descriptive essays, this is what we will be discussing next. So now remember, with a descriptive essay, it's often the case that the description is both practical and ornamental, both requiring clean and simple language. It draws learners away from writing that is overly descriptive, adjective laden, or simply gushingly over the top. Okay, so there are quite a few words being made use of there just to kind of define the nature of a descriptive essay. Study descriptive passages from good writers. This is a good technique that you could be making use of. Many use hardly any adjectives to describe or create descriptions that work exceptionally well. So this is another study tip essentially that you can make use of. Description is often used more to create atmosphere and mood rather than the use of a picture, for instance. So films especially do this via visual methods. Writers do this with words, where the choice of words is more determined by their connotations than by the accuracy of their denotative use. Okay, so often is the case that this is evident within descriptive essays. So now, with regards to descriptive essays, it's important that you make your description stand out from all the others. For example, the poet Mongeng Wally Sorote wrote this particular description: "My hand, like a starved snake, rears my pockets from my thin, ever lean wallet." So you can just get a sense as to what the nature of this particular description is, just in terms of layering the particular scene that's unfolding in this particular piece. So possible features of descriptive essays, again, an acronym that you can make use of in order to define these descriptive essays, this particular acronym, IFES. So here we have it. I, in this particular case, stands for imagery. So it's up to you as the writer to devise imagery that is associated with the senses, okay, whether this be sight, sound, hearing, taste, or touch. Then the next letter, F, stands for figurative. So the use of figurative language, again, just giving the examiner a sense as to what your creative ability may be in order to just bring across a message in a kind of unique and, say, original manner. And then the next letter stands for emotive, or E stands for emotive. The use of emotive language, again, just to really captivates the reader, tries to bring them into the world of the character in whatever capacity that may be. And then the next letter, S, stands for subjective. So you're allowed to use subjective language. This is where you write about your personal feelings and give your opinion. So this could often be the case where you are essentially describing a personal experience that you may have gone through and the types of emotions and feelings that you experienced in whatever capacity that may have been. Okay, so with regards to reflective essays, remember a reflective essay presents the writer's views, ideas, thoughts, and feelings on a particular topic, usually something that they feel strongly about. So it tends to be quite personal rather than subjective. It needs a careful structure, but it does not have to present a clear conclusion because, again, this is your subjective take on whatever topic it may be. So nor does it have to present a balanced discussion, although it might. It can be witty or serious. This is up to you at the end of the day. A reflective essay usually includes the writer's emotional reactions or feelings. It could be about a dream, your hopes for the future, or maybe even a past event that you are elaborating on. A reflective essay will now be about what you think and feel about a particular topic. So it shows your emotions, your hopes, and your dreams at the end of the day. So possible features of a reflective essay that you can now bear in mind, courtesy of the acronym KIT, or K-I-T. So now when it comes to the first letter, K stands for knowledge or experience. So at the end of the day, because you are reflecting on a particular event, you obviously have quite a bit of knowledge or quite a bit of know-how as to what exactly went down or took place at the particular, on that particular day or that particular moment. So you are to write about what you know, what you have experienced, or what you have observed. So you are incentivized to include your thoughts, your feelings, and your reflections. The next letter is I, which stands for imagery. So the use of interesting words or figurative language, similes, metaphors, personifications, etc., will stand you in good stead. It also allows you to describe or create an image or picture of your emotions and your experiences. Because again, you obviously have a very personalized experience at your disposal. But now in terms of bringing that across in the form of an actual essay or words on a piece of paper, it often does require a little bit more, say, reflection and a little bit more use of language in order to make that a kind of clear and concise product. And then the next letter, T, stands for tense. So it's in your best interest to vary the tense in your essay to describe or reflect on the past in relation to the present. You may use the flashback technique that was mentioned earlier, where your essay begins in the past tense, in the present tense, excuse me, and then you make reference to particular events that essentially elaborate on those events. So, or experiences that are written in the past tense, which then return to, of course, the present tense. All right, next what we have in store is an argumentative essay. So now remember, argumentative essays tend to be subjectively argued in order to defend or attack a particular, say, point or particular event. They often are consistent and well argued where possible, but it will inevitably be one-sided. So it's important to not get too carried away with bias, but it also is important to bring across your point of view very, say, concisely. So the conclusion clearly states where the writer stands and why they have that particular stance. So the purpose of the essay is to try and convince or persuade the reader to agree with whatever opinion is being offered or being presented. So the writer's opinion about the topic is clear throughout the essay. It's consistent. It is often reinforced with examples or arguments that provide any kind of justification for whatever point of view it may be. And this just creates a more, say, convincing dynamic for the actual reader. So possible features of an argumentative essay, which you can bear in mind, courtesy of the acronym PORS. So the following acronym stands for, or P rather, stands for present tense. So often is the case in an argumentative essay, you are expected to write in the present tense. The next letter, opinion or point of view. O, opinion or point of view. Your essay must begin by stating your opinion or point of view on the particular topic. This is essentially the first and foremost approach that you must take. You must present your point of view in your introduction, because remember, this is the beginning of the essay. You must avoid stating whether you disagree or you agree with a particular topic. You must just merely state what you feel to be the case. The next letter, R, stands for reasons. So again, it's not going to be very convincing for the reader if you cannot substantiate your points or provide evidence as to why you feel or why it is that you hold a particular view or a particular opinion on whatever topic it may be. So it's in your best interest to support your views by giving reasons and linking them together in a logical way. For example, using linking words like because or this shows, however, therefore, will again just give the examiner a sense as to whether they feel that you are elaborating on your points concisely and productively. And then the next point, or the next letter rather, S, stands for strong conclusion. So this often is a difficult aspect that many students are faced with when it comes to just wrapping up their ideas and wrapping up the essay in its entirety. So now when ending the essay, you need to make use of a strong conclusion that is clear and is convincingly stating your particular opinion. So you must, you may repeat the same idea given in your introduction, but you must write it in a kind of different way that does not necessarily just repeat yourself at the end of the day. Okay, then we're moving on to what's known as a discursive essay. Okay, so discursive essays tend to be more balanced and present various sides of a particular argument. The structure is carefully and clearly planned, and the tendency is to offer objectivity, but the writer can be personal at the end of the day. So this is more of an objective essay, stating the facts as opposed to offering specific or subjective opinions. So now, while emotive language is possible, the best arguments here are one, because they make good and reasonable, say, sense. The conclusion leaves the reader in no doubt as to where the writer stands, rather. So, possible features of a discursive essay, which you can make mention of or make use of in your preparations, courtesy of the acronym BROT. So, in this particular case, the B stands for both sides of an issue. You need to provide a balanced view. There are advantages and disadvantages that need to be evident at the end there, but the point being that it needs to be balanced. The next letter R, reasons to support each view. So you need to use links, however, therefore, this shows, etc., to connect reasons to views that are being offered in the essay. The next letter O stands for objective. Avoid personal pronouns like I or me or we and emotions, even though it can make use of emotive language every now and then. It would probably be a good idea to shy away from that and make it more, say, objective at the end of the day. And then the next letter, T, stands for tense. You are to write in the present tense, because often is the case that this will be presenting matters as they stand at this point in time. So now when it comes to essay writing, this section is the most creative of the two sections that you may be faced with in the actual paper. So it's an opportunity for you to obtain better marks for English, because it's a very personalized approach that you can take to the exam. So the type of essays that you've now encountered, we've discussed this previously, but just with regards to a bit of time management tips or a couple of points that can be made mention of, allow yourself essentially 80 minutes to complete the essay. So this is an hour and 20 minutes. So with regards to the time that you are given or that you may make use of, you need to plan, you need to draft, you need to edit, and you need to proofread your particular piece in order for you to present the most concise and most comprehensive product at the end of the day. So now, a typical question that could come your way, just going to be sharing you with an example with you now. So the question in this particular case, write an essay of 400 to 450 words, roughly 2 to 2.5 pages on one of the following topics. You are to write down the number and title or heading of your essay. It's very important that you stipulate what number you are answering and what is the title or the heading of your particular essay that you have chosen to elaborate on. You also need to note the length of the essay. You should have an idea of how many words you write per line beforehand. This is obviously very different amongst all learners, depending on the size of your handwriting. Before you write the examination, you should already work out on average how many pages it would be for you to write 400 to 450 words. But more importantly, do not forget to write down the number and the topic in your answer booklet. Also, label your planning, first draft, and final effort. Make the examiner aware of what exactly is your planning section, or what pages in your booklet have you dedicated to planning, what is the actual draft piece that you have now written, and then essentially what is your final effort. Okay, so a couple of topics that I'd like to share with you guys today, just a couple of examples as to what could be the case when it comes to these topics, or what could be the final effort essentially. So this particular topic is entitled My Inner Landscape. Okay, so my inner landscape. So at this, in this particular case, I've identified it as a reflective essay. Note that the word my in this topic lends itself to a reflective essay. So that was just a point that I picked up on. This is a personal piece of writing. Essentially, it's a key aspect of this writing. A key aspect of this writing, rather, is a sincere tone. You need to try and write from your personal experience. This could be an essay about your inner philosophy in life, an introspective or internal view about yourself. This is the definition of, say, inner philosophy, if you will. It's an essay that could probably look at the journey, the landscape, if you will, of your or my life, okay, in this particular case. It's your way of thinking. It's your challenges that you have faced. It's the paths that you have chosen. It's the things that matter to you and make up your world, essentially. Okay, the next topic, no bird soars too high if he soars with his own wings. Okay, so let's just repeat that. No bird soars too high if he soars with his own wings. So when it comes to this essay, I've identified it as either an essay that could be narrative, could be reflective, or it could be argumentative. So a good approach that you could essentially highlight is the fact that this particular topic is in quotations. So this opens itself up to interpretation. Your essay should reveal your understanding or interpretation of the quote. Remember, this is up to you at the end of the day. The quote may be interpreted as, one may not achieve as greatly in isolation as opposed to collective efforts. It captures the spirit of Ubuntu, where we need each other in order to be better people. So the essay could be written as a narrative, perhaps, as mentioned earlier, a story where this message is reflected. It could also be written as a reflective essay where you look at how this message applies to your own life or your own experiences of what others have gone through and observed. And you may also write an argumentative essay where you consider how this quotation applies to the society you live in and try to prove that this is a message that is either true or untrue using evidence or observations. Okay, the next topic and final topic that I'll be sharing with you, breaking the code of silence. Okay, so again, this could be narrative, it could be reflective, or a discursive essay. So a code of silence may be interpreted as an unwritten rule to withhold what is believed to be vital or important information, voluntarily or involuntarily, depending on the scenario. So you could write about your experience or the experience of someone else, focusing on the theme of courage by speaking up. So the notion that often is the case that it actually takes more courage to speak up and present information that is now being withheld from others for whatever reason. So the topic lends itself to a narrative essay. You can have a few characters, you may have a clear plot or one aspect of conflict, not an entire life story that is elaborating on a resolution of the events that took place in your conclusion. You don't need to focus on telling the story, but rather on how you tell the story. Use vivid descriptions, make it exciting in the sense that it captivates the actual reader and the audience. You could also write a personal reflective essay or even a discursive essay. Okay, so essentially what we've covered today is the aspect of writing and presenting, specifically focusing on essays. Essentially, when it comes to essays, you could come across a multitude of essays, but we focused on narrative, reflective, and argumentative. We've just gone through the actual nature of those particular essays. What do they comprise of? What is the nature of those essays? And essentially, we've gone through a couple of topics that just elaborate on what one's interpretations of these particular topics could have been or may be, and essentially elaborated on how you can write those essays at the end of the day. So thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to the online learning channel, and we will see you next time. Cheers.